welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive paradigm shift around burnout, loyalty, and how we actually protect our deepest gifts. Look, if you've ever felt completely drained because you're constantly over-explaining yourself, or if you feel like you're giving away pieces of yourself just to keep the peace at work or in your relationships, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to look at the hidden architecture beneath all that exhaustion. Let's explore what it actually means to protect the unique, living process inside of you. Okay, let's kick things off with a concept we all think we totally understand: sacrifice. Nowadays, sacrifice really just implies losing something or giving something up, right? We sacrifice our comfort for our health or maybe our free time for our families. We've basically built this entire cultural understanding around the idea that to do something good, you inherently have to lose a piece of yourself.
But here's where it gets wild. There's a stark, super fascinating contrast between our modern idea of deprivation and the original Latin meaning of the word. If you look at the roots, succor meaning sacred and fature meaning to make or do, originally sacrifice wasn't about destruction or loss at all. It was an act of consecration. It literally meant transforming something into the sacred domain. Over the centuries, we somehow completely lost the plot on this.
Section 1. The Martyr Trap. When sacrifice becomes self-abandonment.
Because we've forgotten that sacrifice is supposed to be about creating the sacred, we accidentally slide right into this really dangerous psychological trap of martyrdom. We start organizing our entire sense of self around chronic injury. Think about this powerful statement: I remain available to being diminished because some part of me believes that being diminished serves life, love, belonging, or worth. The real tragedy here isn't that a person actively wants to be harmed, it's that they've forgotten their own life is sacred too. We mistakenly start believing that if it hurts, well, it must be love.
So we're looking at a huge difference here between healthy generosity and the martyr pattern. Healthy generosity flows freely from a place of abundance. You're full, so you give. The shadow of the martyr, on the other hand, constantly absorbs the cost until being utterly depleted is somehow viewed as a virtue. A healthy person gives something valuable to protect or create something even more valuable. But the martyr? They repeatedly give away themselves, eventually crossing themselves right off the list of things worthy of protection. The cost itself just becomes a habit.
To put this into perspective, think about a fruit tree. It's wonderful when people eat its fruit, but it turns into a tragedy when the tree starts letting people cut off its branches, its bark, and its roots, completely forgetting the difference between its fruit and itself. The tree just keeps saying, "Take what you need," until eventually there is literally no tree left. The profound distinction you have to make is knowing the boundary between the value you generate, the fruit, and the generative source itself.
Section 2. The illusion of proving and seeking permission to exist.
So why do we let people chop off our branches? It usually comes from a desperate need to prove our uniqueness to environments that frankly just lack the capacity to recognize it. I really want you to ask yourself this. When you find yourself repeatedly explaining and defending your life's work to skeptics, what exactly were you hoping would happen if they finally understood? Because trying to prove yourself feels like reality just isn't enough yet, and you need someone else's consciousness to certify it. You're secretly hoping that if you explain it just one more time, they're going to magically transform into this supportive, nourishing ecology you've been craving.
We usually operate on this totally flawed causal chain. We think that if we can just get recognition first, then we'll finally get the permission and the confidence we need to actually create. We tell ourselves, man, when they finally see it, I'll feel allowed to fully stand in it. But think about what that does. It puts the entire world upstream of your gift. You end up burning your life force acting as evidence in a courtroom that doesn't even have the capacity to understand what you're bringing to the table. Let's completely reverse that causality. Here is the actual true sequence. Creation depends on your stewardship and your practice first. That practice is what produces the fruit, and then, maybe, reality eventually recognizes it. You protect the seed, you grow the tree, and recognition just becomes a byproduct. Your confidence stops coming from whether or not people believe you, and instead it comes from your absolute fidelity to the work itself.
Section 3. The Invariant. Protecting the Generative Source.
All right, this brings us to the absolute bedrock rule of this entire explainer. You must never consume the conditions that make your own flourishing possible. A living gift can only thrive if the ecology that generates it is fiercely protected. Every living system, whether we're talking about a forest, your immune system, a startup founder, or a marriage, has to continuously ask, how permeable should I be? And the answer is always that you must never, ever spend the source to prove the gift.
Imagine a pristine mountain spring.
It freely gives water to the village downstream, which is beautiful. But if it allows those villagers to hike up and dig out its source just to get more water today, the spring disappears, and everybody loses. The source has to remain non-negotiable. And that's not out of arrogance or selfishness. It's simply because without the source, there is absolutely nothing left to give. The generosity of a consumed spring is literally self-consuming.
I love this perspective. The living process inside you doesn't need external validation. It just needs you to stop starving the orchard while you're busy pleading with the wrong soil. As the saying goes, the orchard was never waiting for permission to bear fruit, only the gardener was. Your gift is not an argument you need to win. It is a living thing. And living things don't win debates. They grow.
Section 4. The Steward of the Gift. A New Paradigm. We've reached the core resolution of this whole journey. We have to make an archetypal shift. We're moving away from the martyr, the person who guards relationships at all costs, who constantly asks, how much of myself can I give, and confuses depletion with devotion. Instead, we're stepping into the archetype of the steward. The steward focuses fiercely on protecting the source. They ask, what must be protected so this gift can serve for a lifetime? The steward deeply understands that you cannot delegate the care of your gift to people who don't even recognize it yet. You alone are responsible for the living conditions that allow your unique contribution to emerge.
We really have to recognize that over-explaining ourselves to a mismatched ecology is basically a huge energy leak. It's a hidden plea for relational rescue. It's us trying to wait for the people we love to catch up. When we endlessly try to persuade skeptics, we're usually carrying a ton of grief. The hidden message we're really broadcasting is, I don't want to evolve away from you. Please just understand me so I don't have to leave you behind.
And that brings up loyalty. True loyalty doesn't mean hitting the pause button on your own growth just to avoid leaving someone behind. It means walking forward with an open hand instead of a waiting one. Shadow loyalty is a type of loyalty that completely forgets about time. It creates this impossible bargain where you starve your own orchard while you wait for someone else's soil to change. Healthy loyalty, though, it allows your gift to move forward. You invite others to join, for sure, but you never, ever pause the source for them.
When you finally step up and protect that generative source of yours, you can stop speaking for the gift, because reality begins speaking through its undeniable fruits. You stop asking reality for permission to begin. You just become a custodian. You let the tree grow, you let the fruit drop, and you let the evidence accumulate out there in the real world. I want to leave you with one final, pretty provocative question to chew on as you decide how you're going to tend to your own unique orchard. Are you spending your source trying to change the field around you? Or are you stewarding the conditions for your gift to actually stay alive? Remember, a living system must never consume the conditions that make its own flourishing possible. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the stewardship of uniqueness. Take care of your source, and I'll see you in the next explainer.